When you're in the prison and you've got actual murderers saying they're going to stab you, or you've got seriously dangerous people threatening you, you develop a very thick skin. It's either this works or it doesn't work and I lose my house. When you're pushed to a place where you've got to do it, you've got no other choice. You know what I mean? Sink or swim. So I just went in and just taught these guys the basic lifts. And after that, they asked, would you be able to do this a program to get strong? And I just naively said yes. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this is the first time in my life I've ever had this want to learn. So I trained 2 fighters for absolutely nothing, one in boxing and one in MMA, and I knew that would get me other fighters. I'm the strength and conditioning coach. I'm a very small part of the puzzle. I'm not the main guy. So am I overstepping my boundaries here by making this call? But I just felt, you know what, I'm going to regret it if I don't say this. I know this is your plan, but I think the plan was terrible. It was a kind of seminal moment probably in my career and certainly in my relationship with Paul. Just because it's hard does not mean it's any good. You don't actually get stronger in the gym, you get stronger out with the gym when you've slept and when you've recovered. So everyone's looking for a secret. There isn't one. We all know really what you need to do at anything to get good at it. If you're doing what you're meant to be doing, you will get to where you want to be. You just got to be dedicated and consistent, and that's pretty much it. Dump the girlfriend, quit the job, work for yourself. It will change your life. The best thing I ever did was make that jump.
The Gentrified Stoic Podcast.
How's your day? You don't look like you've got too many battle scars for Bournemouth, man. Were you no out partying?
No, I wasn't out bought it. Well, I had a few drinks. Sam doesn't really drink though. He like had 1/2 a pint and that was it. So
Right.
it wasn't too wild, which is good.
Aye, it's good today, but do you know if you don't get a bit disappointed with that if you've been used to like these Las Vegas events with Paul and all that and you want to go mad?
I do and I don't. The problem is nowadays I get depressed after drinking. You know what I mean?
Nah, totally, man.
Like I just can't handle the next day depression. So I'm not too fussed if we don't go out and do a mad one.
Nah, I feel you, man. It's like, I used to think my hangovers were bad in my 20s, but it's genuinely, I mean, I don't even drink anymore, but anytime I do dip into it, it's like a week of depression, 2 or 3 weeks of lost motivation, 4 weeks of lost diet for like one night out. If I can keep it to one night out.
You're sounding like Mr. Bartlett.
Yes, I didn't see you weighing in on that, by the way. What was your thoughts there?
So like I suppose the studies prove that it does affect your HRV for up to 3 days, like your alcohol consumption. So there is probably something to it, but I also think he's been a bit of a pussy. I
know why you would say it, man. I definitely, if I heard someone say that 6 or 7 years ago, I would have slaughtered them, man. But it was like I said the other day on social media as well when I was doing a trial podcast with Scott. Like his goals are different, man. He wants to travel the world. He wants to build the biggest podcast in the world. He wants to get up. He wants to exercise. He wants to feel good. And wine doesn't help that, man. So I think that's its goal.
How much of it is psychosomatic though? How much of it is him in his head being like, oh my God, I can't believe I had those 3 wines. I don't usually do that. And that's what's affecting his performance rather than it actually affecting his performance. What do you think?
I think there's definitely an element where he talks about his numbers on his whoop and stuff like that. Like, I think I go on and off with recording sleep because I think for that reason, if you want to wake up and feel like shit, there's enough reasons to feel like shit with a device telling you. And I don't think it's a great idea to record that sort of stuff religiously or to live by it. You know, you need to kind of sometimes just get on with it and push through. But I also like, I can relate, man. I think maybe it's years of telling myself that it's how bad drink was for me after it, or maybe it's years of like a bit of a PTSD of how much I was drinking at one stage and how bad it did make me feel. But I can definitely relate, man, that next day getting up and feeling groggy and just feeling like, I don't know, I used to always rate everything on like a scale of +10 to -10 in terms of how good you're feeling. And like, I would have said that when I was back drinking, like I was always starting off at a minus, and in order just to do the most basic tasks, it takes effort when you slip into that minus. So I get what he means. Like if you're getting up and everything feels like an effort, then why would you want to do it to yourself? But similarly, I do appreciate when people say he needs to man the fuck up. He's only had 3 glasses of wine, but live and let live is my motto, I guess. Where do you sit with that, man? Do you drink much?
So what do you want to cover, my friend? Are we started? Where are we going right now?
We're recording, but just because some of the magic happens before we get started quite a lot of the time.
Oh, I was going to say I've not done my hair from the stand by. I'll put the mic. Sorry, what were you going to say? Where do I stand on what?
Where do you know where they stand on drinking? But what's your relationship with alcohol like, man? Obviously, you're working with elite athletes. You are having to lead by example to some degree. What's your thoughts on it, and what's your relationship with it like?
It's always been quite good. I've never really had an addictive personality, to be honest, so I've never had too much of an issue with it. I have, at occasion, when my life's been super stressful, slipped into the just having a few every single night. So me and my partner got bad to the end of last year. I don't mean like in a relationship aspect. I just mean we just got lazy and we just fucking having fun, having 2 or 3 drinks every night. And then you realise, holy shit, I've put on 5-6 kilograms and it's all just from the alcohol. And I've not been training as much. So I have slipped into that maybe only like a couple of times in my life, but on the whole, it's okay. It's always been quite good. And I've never been one for the party supplements, we'll call it, that go along with that usually.
Ah,
You know what I mean? So because I've never been part of that, I feel like it's not been as much of an issue for me. Whereas if I was into that, where like, you know yourself, people like to drink, and once they drink, they have to have that line. If I was into that, then it'd be more of a problem, I think.
nah, definitely, man. It's amazing to hear you be able to say that. I don't know many people who's got that relationship with drink where they don't get into the party supplements, especially from our generation. But B, they are able to say like,
Uh,
I'll have a few and I'll switch it off, and you can then continue having a normal relationship with alcohol. Although, like you say, it can quite easily slip. It can quite easily become, a period of 2 or 3 weeks, and where you go, fuck, I've had a drink most nights here. And that was my issue, where you go like, if I have 2 or 3 drinks and I have a relatively hard day the next day, I'm like, probably deserve a glass of wine once I get through that hard day. And it wouldn't become every day for me, but
Yeah.
definitely every weekend. And I did like the supplements as well, to be fair. So you were saying, what do we want to cover? It's a bit different for the average. I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, man. You always come across very well. Yeah, it's nice to see you on video, not slaughtering people as well. But you built something really special. You're working with some really, really interesting people. So I want to sort of chat with you about how you go from that place of being a prison officer, as you were like less than 10 years ago, right?
Yep, yep.
To like where you are now. And what the journey was like for you, what the hardest parts were, did you nearly pack it in? Also, your take on some of these guys that are performing at elite levels and how they get there, what the difference is between them and some of the people that maybe don't make it, and what we can learn from those guys as mere mortals, people who's just trying to go about and build a wee bit of a better life.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Imagine, mate. Well, let's just get into it then. So first of all, Glenn, you were in Bournemouth for the weekend with Sam. How was your trip?
Yeah, unbelievable. It was a very, very good week. Obviously, Sam performed like flawlessly. I don't think there's much more Sam could have done. Knockout of the night, performance of the night. People already saying it's up there for knockout of the year, you know. So yeah, pretty special Zuffa debut from Sam. And obviously Sam's not really a client, well, yes, but he's my mate. So yeah, it was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Amazing, man. What do you think? I mean, there's loads and loads of talk about Sam, and obviously it was amazing as an amateur as well. What do you think makes Sam so special?
You know what's funny? I was having that kind of discussion with him today, and there's only a few people I've had that I've trained over the years that have got the ability to train all year round, like actually say, like I hear a lot of people say I train all year round, right? A lot of them are just chatting nonsense, right? They'll take 2-3 weeks out, or they'll train now and then, but they're out partying and stuff like that. Sam doesn't do that. But what he's able to do is you've got the people that are able to train year round as well, but they're not able to pull themselves back. So they're not able to know when they need to relax, know when to not do a hard session. He's very good at listening to me as well. So when I say, mate, you're probably doing a bit much, he'll pull back immediately. We'll look at his HRV or anything that we want to track. And he's really, really good at that. So he's good at taking on information. Obviously, he's just unbelievably talented as well. And he's got unbelievable coaches. Like, you don't get much better coaches than Rob McCracken. That's like, he's got an MBE for a reason, you know what I mean? He's Anthony Joshua's former head coach and Carol Froch and all this. So he's got unbelievable coaches, unbelievable talent, good work ethic, but smart with it as well.
Amazing, man. And how much, so it's funny to hear you say that, because talent's the second thing you spoke about there. The first thing you spoke about was actually ability to manage his training. He can step on and he can step off. How big a factor is that? Are there people that are maybe more talented that don't go as far because of an inability to manage that side?
Oh, absolutely. There's countless people I can think of that are certainly more athletic than, say, Sam is, and he won't mind me saying that. So they've got that kind of physical talent, especially, but for whatever reason, they've not got the whole package. And I always think about it like Sam, you've got Sam Hickey, I've got Sean Clancy Jr., I had Paul Craig. Those are my three that, like, they do everything right all the time. Super, super professional, constantly. And they might not be, like, say, the most athletic, although Sean Clancy is, but Paul Craig's not the most athletic. Technically, he wasn't the best. You wouldn't mind me saying that he's limited, or he was limited. He started when he was 24. Like, but he's got the work ethic, he's smart, and he listens to people. So I think that is an absolutely major, major factor. And like, you see where those three people are now and have been, and they're some of the greatest Scottish fighters, you know what I mean, or will be put down as some of the greatest Scottish fighters ever, in my opinion.
Wow, do you think Sam and Sean are going to go that far?
Again, without falling out with Paul Craig, I believe they could go further than Paul would, yeah. Paul did. I mean, but that's still lofty heights. I mean, Paul gets a lot of abuse, and unrightly so, because I think he was at his highest point, he was ranked 6th in the world. And to do that in the UFC at light heavyweight, where he was undersized for the weight, and we were told that at the UFC Performance Institute. So to do that whilst you're undersized, while you only started when you were 24, you've got limited striking, I think that's pretty special. But I do think someone like a Sean Clancy and someone like Sam Hickey could go further.
Wow. And so you obviously touched on Sam. What makes Sean so special?
Sean is an athletic freak. Like, he just is. He is by far the most athletic person I've ever trained. And it's, to be honest, it's not that close. So he's got that. Started very early. Amazing coaches. It's the same patterns you see over and over again with these guys, you know. Hard working, amazing coaches, dedicated. Yeah, just he's got the full package. Mentally, he's got it there as well. He's a man of faith, and I think that helps him out a lot as well. Although I'm not a man of faith, but he is, and I think it can be very helpful for a fighter.
You see a lot of people that rise up in not just combat sports, but elite athletes worldwide that have this huge faith, and I agree. I think that it can be massive if you've got that on your side.
Yeah, it's something that's like, it's a support system for you, really, and it's to have something that you know in your head that you know for 100% is backing you must be very, very comforting. And I'm almost envious of it sometimes. But yeah, a lot of these people, a lot of these athletes do have that on their side, absolutely.
Is it ever something you were interested in? Is there something you would look at? You say you're envious of it. Strangely, I feel in a similar place where I'm like, is that something that, because a lot of people seem to be, they get to a certain level and they bring faith back into their life and it adds a new dimension. And something you thought about?
Not that deeply. And like in terms of religion, I do think there's obviously a higher power. I do think more people, or most people, think there's a higher power. I just don't know if I want to go down the side of a religion, a dogma, and that kind of approach.
Right.
But I've not looked into it too deeply, if I'm being completely honest. I don't think it's for me, but I understand why it's for others.
No, I'm very, very similar, like I say, but I am starting to see that. I made a chat with a very interesting chap on Friday who was talking about higher powers and again, not necessarily being in the form of God, but just some form of higher power, be it the universe, be it a belief in a community, be it land, be it his kids. That I am starting to see more and more people in this kind of wellness community that you see, a bit like Mr. Bartlett we spoke about, starting to turn to faith. So that's interesting we've come across it. So it was Zuffa boxing at the weekend. What's your thoughts on them?
It was. They've been getting a lot of stick from people like Eddie Hearn and that. And I do think it's slightly unwanted, in my opinion. At the minute, they're trying to bring across the UFC model. That's what it was. Like when I was backstage there, it was the exact same setup as the UFC. They had the UFC Performance Institute. They had pretty much the same people with just different tops on. But when you're a power like TKO or like Zuffa boxing and you've got that backing, you're going to be exceptionally hard to stop. I mean, you know yourself, imagine trying to deal with multi-billion-pound companies. It's quite tricky to beat them if they want to win and they want to take over your specific market. Good luck stopping these guys, especially when you've got someone like Dana White at the forefront who has got a tremendous ego, but I do think it helps him because he will not lay down, he will not want to lose. It can hurt him sometimes, we know ego can hurt you, but it can be a benefit to you absolutely as well. So from the production, the professionalism, very, very good. There was a few negatives, teething issues I'd probably put it down to. The scales, there was an issue with the scales, there was a lot of waiting around. But I think as we go on, I think they'll get a lot more slicker and they'll get much better at it. And I think, yeah, they're going to be pushing to take over.
You think it'll be a good thing for boxing?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think the more competition, the better. Usually the more competition, the better. You don't want a monopoly. But if they did take over, then that's what you're going to have. You're going to have a monopoly. So I think maybe in the short term, it's going to be a good thing for boxing. I think they're going to be maybe throwing about a bit of money to get these people in. And I think that's only going to benefit the fighters. But then we've seen them talk about maybe getting rid of the Ali Act and doing things like that, which is obviously there to protect the fighters. So that's slightly worrying. But I guess we're just going to have to see how it plays out.
Interesting, man. So, in terms of your story, before enhanced sports performance, before the UFC fighters, the elite athletes, you were working in a prison. So how do you go, in less than 10 years, how do you go from working in a prison every day to being labelled by Paul Craig as one of the best strength and conditioning coaches for combat athletes in the world?
Paul's been far too nice there, but you get a bit of luck and just a lot of hard work and a bit of, I suppose, not having any other option. When I left the prison, my partner at the time had just left her job as well to go self-employed. We had mortgages, or we had a mortgage, sorry. So it's either this works or it doesn't work and I lose my house. Now, or I end up exceptionally depressed. There's the other option, which is not great either. So I was very fortunate that my brother did a bit of, like, he's a part-time boxing coach, and he had a few fighters or boxers wanting to learn the basic lifts. And I'd always known a little bit about the gym because before I was a prison officer, I was a bouncer, and I just wanted to get a bit bigger. So I'd done a little bit at the gym. So I just went in and just taught these guys the basic lifts, the big three we call it: the squat, the deadlift, the bench. And then after that, they asked, would you be able to do us a program to get strong? And I just naively said yes. And I wish I had my first ever program, because it would have been absolutely fucking horrendous. But what I realized in the whole learning of this process, I realized I actually really enjoyed it. And I wasn't someone who enjoyed education. I just did it because my family did it. All my family are teachers. I felt kind of forced to do it. Didn't want to appear as the stupid one of the family, although I probably still am. But yeah, what I realized is as I was doing this, I wanted to come home from my job and learn about strength and conditioning. I wanted to read the books. I wanted to watch the YouTube on it. And remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this is the first time in my life I've ever had this want to learn. And that I realize is like, whoa, that's quite big.
Amazing. And I've heard that quite a lot as well, where people didn't necessarily like school, then they love learning in a different setting. So what was it that changed for you? Was it just purely the what you were learning about?
Mm. Yeah, I think it was what I was learning about. I'd always been interested in combat sports. Like, I watched my first ever MMA fight when I was 11 in 2001. So I'd always had this interest in combat sports. So I think it was a bit of both. I think it was just a bit of thing being around the fighters and knowing a bit about the world. I just liked being in about it and learning about it. So yeah, it was a bit of both. And also there was something in the back of my mind that I knew I couldn't be a prison officer forever. It was fun whilst I did it, but it's also exceptionally stressful and it's a very negative place. And I think it's not something that you could do for 20, 30 years. Because if you did, well, the people that I worked with that had done it for that long, they weren't in the greatest of spots for different reasons, whether it be their health, whether it be their relationships, whether it be their attitude and their personality, to be honest. They weren't the greatest to be around. So I remember thinking, that's not a coincidence. That's the job. We've all got a common denominator here, and this is the job. So I remember thinking, I need to get out of here fairly sharpish. It wasn't really negatively affecting me too much, but there was moments during the week, or sorry, my span there, that during the week I would feel a bit stressed about, oh, I need a day off, or I would end up maybe having a few drinks at night to try and relieve that stress and try and get to sleep. So I remember thinking, this is not really a good thing.
Amazing. And did it take like a rock bottom from that, or were you able to go before it got too low?
No, I think I was quite lucky, to be honest. I wouldn't say I hit a rock bottom. I wouldn't say I got to that stage. I was just very apparent of it. And it's probably because my dad had that rock bottom. He got depression. He ended up going off ill with stress and all this from his work. So I think I've been very cognizant of that in my life. Where like, right, I don't want that to happen. And what's great now is my dad's had a complete 180, and he's like so chill. He's almost like a monk. He's completely into the mindset. He's into a lot of mindset things and stuff like that. So he's taught me a lot about it. And he's always said, like, don't chase the money. Doesn't matter. If it's going to cause you stress, don't do it. So I think I'm very cognizant of that. And because of that, I was able to make the jump before it got bad. Whether I would have been able to do that without having like his, I suppose, presence and advice in my life, I don't know.
Brilliant, man. And it's amazing your dad's been able to gift that to you, but it's also amazing he's gifted it to you in the form of him turning his life around. I know a lot of people have to learn that from having watched their parents make the mistake, but never actually quite managed to turn that around as well. So amazing, man. That's a great part of the story. Do you take a lot from your dad in his space? He sounds like he's in quite a healthy, nice, wellness mindset. Do you take a lot from that in your current role?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I try and put it into every part of my life, whether it be whatever it is, and whether I'm getting stressed out at work, whether I'm getting stressed out with my missus, whatever it is, I'll always try and go back to mindset, wellness, this stoicism, wherever it is. And I remember there was a point in my life where I broke up with my ex-partner, and I'd been with her for 9 years, had 2 dogs together, lost the dogs. And I remember thinking to myself, right, I need to be super careful now, because I was very aware that this is the point in a lot of people's lives and a lot of guys' lives where they do get depressed. But
Yeah.
this could be a turning point. So I remember thinking at the time, I need to do something actively to make sure my environment is as positive as possible so I don't feel like that. So I went on to my Instagram because I'm unfortunately, I have to be on my phone for my business in
And
terms of I need to post on social media, I need to record, I need to do this. So I'm seeing the social media feeds a lot of the time. So I remember thinking, right, let's make that as positive as possible because I can't remove it completely. It's not practical for me. So I remember going onto Stoicism pages, following as many as I can, mental health, like wellness, positive pages, following as many as I can, how to deal with breakups and like from a neurological perspective, because I was quite into that, following as many as I can. It kind of making sure I got rid of maybe the girls that were posing scantily and all that kind of stuff. Got rid of that and just tried to have my feed as a positive feed as much as possible, so that when I did start scrolling and doom scrolling, which I inevitably would be, I was going to start seeing some positive things. So that was kind of part one of my plan. The second part of my plan was, what does this breakup actually allow me to do? Well, it's basically going to get, and what does losing these two dogs allow me to do? Well, it allows me to travel the world, essentially. It's going to give me more time. So I was like, well, that can be a huge positive. Like, it's a massive negative when you lose your two dogs, especially. But how can you turn it into a positive? So I remember thinking about that and thinking, right, let's fucking travel. So that's when I went away to Thailand, and I had an unbelievable experience in Thailand. It was great. Just training every day, the sun, the weather, again, super positive. So I did that on purpose. And again, I don't think I would have done that if I didn't have the knowledge and advice from my dad. That probably wouldn't have happened. What probably would have happened was I would have been like, I'm going to be fucking fine, be all right, get a new bird, I'll be fine. And that's when it starts to go all wrong for people, I believe.
fucking amazing, man. That is amazing. So you've had two potentially massively negatively life-altering events there between a career where you can see that a spiral's potentially coming and a massive life event of losing your ex-partner and two dogs. And that in itself can create, like you say, someone in 30, 40 years' time that has a coulda, woulda, shoulda, lives in the past, maybe a bit depressed, maybe a bit down, but you've taken that positive action before you've got there. The advice on breaking up with someone is incredible there, mate. Well done. That's a phenomenal story.
Thank you.
Ah, I love it, man. I love it. So I know from my own experience that starting a business is daunting and difficult in any industry, right? But strength and conditioning feels a bit like a crowded space. There's so many voices competing for air. What made you think you could build something successful in this industry in particular?
I was fortunate enough when I started, especially in Dundee, where I was based, that no one was doing it. So, as much as it is crowded now, and it is, when I started, it wasn't. And that is, I suppose, it's called first mover's advantage in business, isn't it? It is an advantage to be the first person doing it. It just is. And I remember realizing quickly I needed to do two things. I needed to get some of the kind of micro influencers in Dundee in, and I needed to push social media as much as I could because I knew that would be a massive thing for me. So I trained two fighters for absolutely nothing, but they were looked up to in Dundee, one in boxing and one in MMA. I knew that would get me other fighters. So I did that straight off the bat, trained them for nothing throughout their whole career. And then I promoted as much as I could on social media. And yeah, you're rubbish at it at the start, you're terrible at talking on camera at the start, but I knew those two things would be my way of breaking through and getting at least enough to pay the bills. And obviously at the start, I had to still do personal training. It wasn't like I just had fighters like I do now. But that was enough for me, whereas I was going to be like, okay, I can pay my bills and I'll be fine.
Where do you think it came from within you to go and push beyond that? What people are going to talk about, what people are going to say, the negative comments, the stuff that comes with putting yourself out there.
I think there is an advantage of coming from the background that I came from in terms of working in a prison. And I think I've said this before, but it did help me. Like, I think with personality, one, like, we all care about what people think a little bit, right? Especially your loved ones and the ones you care about, right? But I've never been too bothered about it. I've been always quite confident. And then the other reason is, in the jail, when you're in the prison and you've got actual murderers saying they're going to stab you, or you've got seriously dangerous people threatening you, you develop a very thick skin. And I had it on the doors when I was a bouncer as well. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this to you, blah, 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 blah. And you realize that some fake account posting that you're an idiot or saying you're an idiot in the comments, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't affect my day whatsoever. And I see it as a positive because it's always going to boost the algorithm. So I'm like, brilliant. So I'll have a back and forth with them in the comments about it. But if I did ever think it was going to affect me, I wouldn't do it. Like, so if I read a comment and I realized that, oh, these comments are starting to affect me negatively, I just wouldn't read comments. I would just post and I would just ghost. I would just disappear for the day. But because it doesn't do that to me, and maybe it changes over time as I get older, maybe I get more sensitive, I don't know. But I've always had that kind of personality. So I think that is a big advantage. And I can understand why people don't want to put themselves out there because they're worried about getting that judgment. And also there is the element of I had to do it. Like we talked about, if when you're pushed to a place where you've got to do it, you've got no other choice. You know what I mean? Sink or swim. And that can be a very powerful tool if you use it correctly.
I hear you. I love that bit about how you were able to do that and how you don't let it affect you too much. I definitely live somewhere in between that where I think I can, at my best, I can say, I don't care, Like you say, we're programmed to give a shit about what people think, right? But I've got to a stage where I used to care what everybody thought, and now I'm at a stage where I know who matters, and if they tend to be relatively on board and have a bit of respect for either what I'm doing or how I'm behaving, I can live with it. But definitely on my worst days, I do feel that if I've had a negative comment, I sort of start to hear that, and I start to wonder if I believe it. I wonder if on the days where it's maybe not gone quite as well for you, maybe you've got a fighter's lost a fight, maybe you've had a bit of particularly negative criticism. Do you start to hear some of that then?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. As you're saying that, I was thinking, yeah, there will be times where if something has happened, like a fighter's law, like for example, when Paul Craig got beat, I would, if I was scrolling through something, I saw something about it, I would scroll past it straight away because I don't want to see it because it would negatively affect me 100%. And it's because, again, Paul Craig was my mate, or is my mate, sorry. He was my client. And you don't want to hear stuff like that. So it's not like it doesn't get through. You just got to have the self-awareness to know maybe when you can deal with it and when you can't deal with it, or when there's something a little bit that you don't want to hear. And what are your
Um,
tactics to avoiding it, or what are your tactics to dealing with it, rather than letting that snowball over and over and over again? And there's obviously a few things you can do, but I think it's more about being self-aware. That's quite important. Like you say, you know when your bad days are, so maybe you want to cut down on that social media usage that day, whatever it may be.
hmm, good. No, I like that. So, what's been the hardest parts on your journey so far?
I mean, there's been some really hard parts business-wise, where opening up a gym and things like that. I mean, we we got our electricity stolen, and they were growing our weed farm, and it was making my electricity bill extortionate to the point where I had about 30 grand in debt. Like, stuff like that is stuff that you do not get taught. No matter if I was in business school, no one ever says, right, Adam, make sure you check your roof because there might be someone growing weed in it and they might be costing you a fucking fortune. You don't get taught that no matter where you go. So there are things that crop up, but I think the business side of it, I've had to realize what I'm not good at in that sense. I think I thought I could do it all, and I was spinning far too many plates. And I would have caught this incident. I would have caught it earlier if I maybe realized, look, Adam, this is what you're not good at. Let's bring someone in to deal with that side of it. Now that's done, and I've got someone in, and my business partner deals with all that. So it's very fortunate because I've realized it before kind of everything went completely tits up. But I think That's my biggest learning. Is my dad says this all the time as well, you've not got to be the smartest person in the room, but you've got to be smart enough to go and get that smart person or go and hire that person that you need. And I think I didn't do that initially at first, and it probably cost me a lot of time and a lot of stress because, yeah, that was a very stressful time.
I understand that, and I can relate to it massively. The difference I was able to make in our business when we brought someone in to do the stuff that I wasn't particularly good at. But equally, you can't always do that from the start either, can you? You do have to go through that difficult period where you have to kind of do a bit of everything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And like, I was very fortunate. I found my business partner. He happened to be in the gym. Like he was a gym member. He was PTing, and that just happened to happen. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you've got to go and kind of learn yourself, like search engine optimization. I didn't even have a fucking clue what that was before I started this job. Learning about algorithms, learning about where to position the camera, audio quality, all these things that you would never ever think about. Well, I never thought about when I was just like, I'm just going to be a strength and conditioning coach. I would never thought you've got to put on so many hats when you're a business owner that it can be quite overwhelming.
Now, of course, and if you add to that as well, that this was a whole new sphere for you, a whole new industry for you, something that you hadn't previously studied. How did you manage to? I mean, so you start off, you do a couple of programs for a few of your brother's pals, and then 8 years later, you've got that successful journey. You've got these elite athletes. You've got you've got this wealth of knowledge. You've got this mass following. How do you go from 0 to 100 like that?
Mm. You've got to again know your weaknesses. So my strengths as well were the fact that I'm very good at communicating. So I knew I was a good communicator. Again, because of probably my background in the jail, maybe a bit of natural ability, but you're dealing with people with a lot of different backgrounds, right? A lot of different backgrounds in there. So you need to be able to communicate with them on their level. And that's what coaches are. A lot of coaches can be very academically amazing, but not have a clue about how to actually communicate with the coach, with a fighter. So that was an advantage for me. I knew how to communicate. Another advantage of mine that I knew was I loved the sport. I knew about MMA. I knew about boxing. I loved combat sports. That's an advantage of me. Another one that I knew was an advantage was the fact that people go to uni for 4 or 5 years to do strength conditioning, but they don't learn specifically about, say, one sport, right? I
Wow.
knew I just wanted to do combat sports. Now I've delved into other areas, football, because Dundee's kind of quite big in football. It's certainly a lot bigger in football than it is in combat sports. So I was maybe a little bit out of necessity at the start, but I knew it was going to be combat sports. So that allows you to kind of focus in, remove everything else, and focus in on, okay, who are the best strength and conditioning coaches for combat sports? Let's learn from them. And that's exactly what I did. Whether it be Gav Pratt at the UFC Performance Institute, did a mentorship with him. Phil Daru, he's like the top guy in America, did a mentorship with him. So it allowed me to save a lot of time, even though I was starting late and I didn't maybe go to university to do it all. It allowed me to save a lot of time because I knew specifically what my niche was and what I was good at and what I was going to do.
Amazing, man. I love that. One of the things you touched on there was communication. I spoke about this in the episode with Paul,
Mm.
and I have used it as an example quite a few times since we first met, and we're chatting about it over in April as well. The difficult conversation you had to have with Paul when he takes that loss and he's at the nomad stage where he's not necessarily fighting out a gym. He gets beat, and on the Tuesday you pick up the phone to him and say, "You're going to have to fucking basically go with your tail between your legs, apologise to James Doolan and get yourself into a higher level as quickly as possible." Now, I think difficult conversations is something that they need to start teaching at school. I think the whole world avoids them. The whole world either is averse to conflict or they don't want to risk upsetting people. Where do you hone the skills to have that conversation with someone like Paul Craig, who a lot of your career's riding on Paul at this stage, I guess?
Yeah, it was a kind of seminal moment probably in my career and certainly in my relationship with Paul, because I've never really properly spoken to Paul about it, but I think it maybe made him realize how much I actually cared for him. as not just a fighter, but his career, his family, and everything else. Because yeah, it's a difficult one to have, and I'm going to be honest. I'm not usually that good with these conversations. I'm usually quite adverse with having these conversations with getting someone in trouble. I know I'm not getting Paul in trouble, but these kind of things I don't really like. I'm usually a 0 or 100 kind of guy. I'm not really good at this side. So I knew this was something that needed to happen, because he was talking about during the week driving down in a camper van, staying in Sunderland, and then driving back up at the weekends. And I was just thinking, this is going to be absolutely horrendous for his career. This is going to be shocking. This is going to be shocking for his personal life. His missus is going to hate this. This is not a good idea. I was super nervous for making that call, and I had to get myself amped up for it, because it's also an element of, I'm the strength and conditioning coach. I'm a very small part of the puzzle. I'm not the main guy. So am I overstepping my boundaries here by making this call? But I just felt, you know what, I'm going to regret it if I don't say this, because I don't think this is a good idea. So I remember making the call and just saying, yeah, look, I know this is your plan, but I think the plan's terrible. I don't think this is going to work out for you, mate. You've got a gym in higher level that is on your doorstep. And yeah, there's been some issue, there's been some beef in the past, but you just need to go phone James Doolan, make your apologies, and see what happens. Because then at least if he told him to fuck off, at least then at that point we're like, right, well, we've got no other option here. We're going to have to go and do your camper van plan down south. But fortunately, James welcomed him. I wouldn't say with open arms, because he did take a bit of a pasting in those first few weeks, but he got welcomed in eventually.
Amazing. And I genuinely, I do think it's something that should be taught, and it's a phenomenal example, because at that stage in Paul's life, people just want to be close to him. People just want to be his friend. People want to tell him what he wants to hear. But I think it's fair to say that conversation changed the trajectory of his career at that time, which is amazing. And like you say, it shows that you care about him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I wish I was taught about it in school, because I do think it's something that's very, very important. It's something that it could change people's lives. And I don't mean that in a dramatic sense. I don't mean sensual dramatic saying that, but it is very, very important. You might be staying in a situation that is maybe not horrendous, but it's not excellent. And I think who was it that talked about this? I think it was Chris Williamson that talked about this, about maybe you're just coasting at a 6 or 7 out of 10, and because it's a difficult conversation to have, maybe it's breaking up with a partner, maybe it's that, you don't have it. And you just stay kind of coasting in this crap kind of, it's not terrible, but it's not amazing. But if you had that difficult
Yes,
conversation, your life would go through the roof.
absolutely. I do. I love that example where he says there's a certain point where, like, I think he uses a distances analogy where, like, it's quicker to walk over a certain period, but then there's only a certain point which you will take the car, and so there's a certain point where if it's walking for a certain period of time, you would have been much quicker to take the car. And so he uses the analogy to sort of level at pain as well, where he's like, people will take a certain level of pain until they won't take it anymore, and then they'll go and make that decision. But he says, but there'll be some people that maybe they get to, like you say, that 6 or 7, and then they just live there forever. And they don't, and I think this is very pertinent in your story as well, where, like, you could have, you keep saying you had to do that, you had to go and take that chance, but you didn't. You were in a job that you could have quite realistically stayed in. You've not hit a rock bottom. You've not hit that 8 or 9 or 10 yet for the pain. You've got to that 6 and went, fuck that. I've seen enough. I've seen what it could do to my dad. I've seen what it can do to people, in here, and made the change. I think that's amazing. Most people wait for a rock bottom. They wait for that fucking painful moment. And you're absolutely right. If you can make that call early enough, look where it's got you, and you didn't need to suffer for it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot to be learned in that 100%. But do you think you need to hit that rock bottom, or do you think you need to have seen it in someone else? So for me, I saw it happen to my dad, and that's why I maybe made the jump before I hit that rock bottom. Because I have no doubt if I stayed in that job 20 years, which, like you say, I could have done, I would have hit that rock bottom eventually. I just saw it way ahead of time. But do you think you would need to either have felt it or have seen it in someone else before you make that jump?
I think so, man. There's a lot of belief in in a lot of recovery communities and a lot of the wellness world that people need a rock bottom. But then again, like you say, if the alternative to that can be seen it in other people, I guess my story is relatively similar in terms of when I did stop and decide to stop taking drinking drugs and living out that life and start to go and double down on my business and double down on being a dad and start taking risks and turn my life around to a certain regard. And it was seen it in other people as well. So I was lucky there that I was able to see the sort of next generation of people that are basically they were 30 years ahead of me, but they hadn't really done an awful lot more than I had. And I don't mean that in terms of big life goals, but I mean that just in terms of they were still living out the same sort of weeks on repeat. And again, similar to you, I just went, fuck that. I keep telling myself I'm going to do this. I keep telling myself I'm not going to do that. So I was lucky enough that mines came from seeing other people heading towards a rock bottom. But it's an interesting one. I wonder if there is a way to prevent younger people or anybody really from having to hit that rock bottom by showing them what the rock bottom could potentially look like. It's a good question, man.
Yeah. AI will help in the future. We'll get our VR headsets on. I'll show you. This is your future if you continue on this path.
Here's what your life will be like. It's funny, I actually had a conversation with someone where they last week, and we were doing a dummy podcast, and they says that they had an experience with psychedelic drugs, and they were on a bit of a bad path, and they got taken to a stage in their future where they were like, say, 55, and it was no longer just having fun every weekend. It was they were proper let down on that level, and straight away they just kind of got their shit together and says, "No, I've had enough of this. I'm not doing it anymore." So maybe we can do that through AI and VAR. That's a fucking tremendous idea.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I know like a lot of people are big on ayahuasca right now, and we've seen a lot of benefits with it. And I think is it ibogaine over in America. Donald Trump's just kind of approved that for use and all these things. So it's very, very interesting the world of psychedelics for addiction and for mental health. It's very interesting.
Is it something that's ever interested you?
I did DMT in the back of a caravan once. Not quite the spiritual experience that maybe Sean and Kieran Reid had. And yeah, it does interest me. I'm probably a wee bit scared of it. And I think just now I'm all right. I'm fine. Everything's going well. But I don't want to do something like that because it does sound very, very intense. I know I spoke to Kieran about it. It is very intense. And it's meant to be intense. But that does worry me. To say it, that kind of freaks me out a little bit. But I think it's a super, super powerful tool. Absolutely. And I know we don't understand a lot about it, but I think if you are really struggling, I'm not saying anyone who's taking it is really struggling, but if you are, it's certainly something I would do. In fact, definitely.
No, I agree. And I have used it in the past. I did do ayahuasca in the past, where I don't think I got the full experience. But in saying that, it was the start of me turning my life around. Again, had a bit of a mess around with DMT, mixing between using it recreationally, like I think you might have done, but using it to try and follow that, and it is incredibly powerful. I do wonder again if you take that example we were just talking about, where you've not hit a rock bottom, or you're not. I think Kieran Smith's probably a good example of that, where he wasn't necessarily at that 8 or 9 or 10. He was just at a 5 or a 6, and it's Kieran's incredible for him. That makes me tempted to go and try it, but like you say, I do get quite scared. Like I've had all these experiences of people saying they were at their own funeral at it, and they died, and they were clinging on, and there was two paths, and they could have went to heaven and they could have went to hell, and you're like, nah, it's not that bad. Like, I'll just meditate.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, are we missing out on unlocking our full potential? And it'll be like fucking limitless. And when we're coming out of it and we'll be seeing shit and it'll be unbelievable. Or is it just going to be very, very traumatic for us? So yeah, I am going to wait off as well.
Maybe we'll need a rock bottom on that one next. So what I wondered as well is we're talking about having those difficult conversations, and we're talking about you've built this, you started posting, you started building this business, and you basically went from scratch. You went on these mentorships. At what stage do you get to, At what point do you get to a stage where you're so comfortable in yourself that you're calling out Barcelona football team for getting their training wrong?
um, you know what it does? You do look at it and you think, am I getting everything wrong here? Like, am I the one that's completely wrong? And of course I get that. But I'm fortunate enough where I know very, very good, highly experienced people in strength and conditioning running massive organizations that I can message them and be like, is this as shit as I think it is? And then they'll back me. So as long as I've got them, someone like that, saying, no, you're right in what you're saying, this is nonsense, then I'm okay to run with it. And I know it's fine to be slagging off Barcelona and stuff, but it's true. A lot of their stuff is horrendous. And there's a whole host of reasons for that. But yeah, it does take a little bit of confidence to go and do that, maybe a wee bit of ego as well. But I'm just very fortunate that I've got a good contact list of people I can talk to about it and just be like, what do you reckon this is about? Why are they doing this? And I'm probably in the position, a lot of these people I'm talking to are like very, very professional people and in highly professional jobs and, like, say, organizations. They couldn't make a post like that. It just wouldn't go down well in their circle. They wouldn't go down well. Even though
Yes.
what they're saying is
Yes.
correct, it's just not the done thing. I'm fortunate enough where I run my own ship. I'm self-employed. I've got my gym. I've got my clients. That's it. So I'm able to make these posts, and yeah, I usually get good feedback on it, to be honest. You'll see in the comments, you'll see people saying, how can you criticize Barcelona, the best team in the world, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually look at the people who are liking what I'm saying, they're liking the comments, or liking the post, sorry, it's always very high level coaches. And that's how I back whether I've done the right job or not.
That's amazing. That's really, really interesting. Why is there still people at such a high level getting it so far wrong then?
So there's an element of, there's just charlatans out there, like in every walk of life. There's charlatans out there that attach themselves with very high level athletes. And it's not the athlete's fault, because their job is to be the athlete. Their job is to play their sport. Their job is not to know about strength and conditioning. Okay? So if you have someone come to you and tell you all this amazing stuff and use all these fancy words and say, I could get you punching 50% harder if we improve your little toe strength, you're like, oh my God. And they usually have the gift of the gab. So usually you're going to be taken in by that. And that happens time and time and time again. And I think strength and conditioning, especially in combat sports, is relatively new. And I think people are just getting taken advantage of, to be honest.
Right. Wow. And
Yeah.
that's on as high up as like the people you're going to ask in some of these videos.
Yeah, like, I've criticised Hamzat Chimaev's, and I'm not being funny, but I was proven right about that. I've criticised Arman Sarukian's. There's a whole host of people, Tyson Fury's. There's a whole host of people who are very high level and they're horrendous. They've got horrendous strength and conditioning, and I think a lot of it is they're just surrounded by people that talk a good game, and they're just so talented. Those people that I've said that they can get away with it. But what you're not hearing about is all the other people who this person's trained and have broken down or been injured, or you're not hearing about those people. I got a message from one of the top one of the top MMA coaches in the world over in America, and he messaged me and said, Adam, you're absolutely right about this guy. We sent a few of our elite guys in the UFC, I'll not mention any names because I can't, but in the UFC, and they got destroyed, and they lost all their fights with him. They were injured all the time. They were skipping training sessions because they couldn't get physically out of the house to go and train because they were that battered by this guy who was just beasting them. So yeah, it's kind of like I don't know if it's an epidemic or not, but there is just a lot of shit still out there, and this is why I kind of call it out, because I don't want it to be out there. I want people to do good strength conditioning, and that doesn't mean fucking come to me. What I mean, go to the UFC Performance Institute, learn from someone like that, learn from all these people over there. They're much better than me. Learn from them. And then you'll see what you're doing is complete nonsense.
Mm. Amazing. And what is it? What is it they're doing that's so wrong? What is it that's landing them in these injuries and making them miss sessions?
So because MMA and combat sports is such an aggressive and manly and kind of this was manly sport, for want of a better word, and like going easy is always seen as a weakness. They feel like the strength conditioning needs to be like that as well. So they feel like they need to go 100%, make them spew, make them puke, try and break them. They do that every single session. And I think a lot of them maybe have a bit of an ego and think they're the main thing when they're really not. Like, I would never want my guys going into sparring being sore from my session. S&C works around the technical aspects of the sport. The technical aspects don't work around S&C. So because of that, I think a lot of people just go way, way too hard with their athletes. And I think they think they're doing a good thing because the guy's sitting there spewing. Now, don't get me wrong, there are times where I'll make my guy sick just because we need to push it hard that day. But the goal is not to make them sick. The goal is to get a specific adaptation, but it might result in them being sick. Whereas these people are just trying to make do the hardest thing possible. Just because it's hard does not mean it's any good. It really doesn't. So I think we're really behind in that kind of aspect of it. If you ask a lot of my guys, some of the sessions they come out of, especially a speed session or something, or a power session, it won't feel taxing at all. It really won't feel that hard. There'll be 45 minutes of work. You could go and do another one straight after it. It won't be that hard, but it has massive benefits for you.
Amazing, man. Amazing. So you've obviously now worked with elite athletes across this multiple sports. What have the best people you've worked with all got in common?
Professionalism, consistency, dedication. It's just, there's no secret sauce. Everyone's looking for a secret. I think there isn't one. We all know really what you need to do at anything to get good at it. You need to be consistent. You need to work hard. You need to keep on showing up when you don't want to show up. But that's it. There's nothing super special about what I do. There's really not. And I just think if you're doing what you're meant to be doing, you will get to where you want to be. You just got to be dedicated and consistent, and that's pretty much it. And listen to people. Just listen as well. And like I said, we talked about Sean Clancy, we talked about Paul Craig, talked about Sam Hickey. They do that, and they do that day in and day out. They listen to the people around them.
Brilliant. That's good. Again, that's really good to hear because you have this misconception that in order to get to the top, you have to have this ego, and right, that ego I'm sure does play a part. Maybe we're touching on as well, but ego doesn't necessarily mean that you're the only voice in the room.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think, like we talked about, ego is very, very important because ego is always seen as a negative thing. I don't think it is a negative thing. I think if I'm grappling with someone or sparring with someone and they're getting the better of me, if I didn't have any ego, then I'd just be like, right, okay, let them beat me up. You can't have that if you're a fighter. You know what I mean? I guarantee if Sean Clancy's getting beaten up in sparring, his ego is screaming. He is going inside, he's going mental, and he wants to beat this person up. So ego's a massive, massive positive, but it can get out of control, and you've got to be very careful. I think maybe fighters like maybe a Conor McGregor has let his ego get out of control. So they're good at probably keeping their ego in check as well, but they've got a bit of it. They've got to.
No, agreed. And what's the biggest difference between those who are likely to make it and those who might fall off?
The biggest difference between those that are going to make it and those that fall off. There is an element of, like, I guess maybe bone strength and conditioning, but there's an element of genetics. Genetics play a massive, massive factor. There's an element of luck. Like if you're trying to do MMA but you're in the Orkney Islands, good luck. You know what I mean? You're probably not going to make it because you need those training partners around you. You need the head coach that's shit hot. You need these things around you. The pillars of performance, I call them. You need to get a lot of them in check, or in place. So if you don't really have that, you're going to struggle, and that's absolutely a luck aspect of it. But again, you can have that self-awareness and that, okay, I need to move from the Orkney Islands, right? No offense to any MMA clubs in the Orkney Islands, but I need to move from there, and I need to go to higher level and do this properly. But again, people are self-aware. The good people are self-aware. They're consistent and they're dedicated, and that permeates through our all. There's nothing that I could say in terms of a secret or a special thing that these, like a Paul Craig's got. That's just what they do day in, day out.
No, I love that. I think I'm far from asking for a secret that these guys have. I haven't spoken to enough of them. It all comes back to the same things. It's dedication, it's consistency, it's discipline, it's showing up when you didn't want to show up. And of course there are other parts that play a factor in there. You've got the luck, you've got the...
I suppose a thing I forgot about was maybe like their why. And I never really had a why when I was training. I remember when I was doing MMA and doing jiu-jitsu and stuff, I was just doing it for fun. And like, I would just be like, oh, if I get tapped out, I didn't really have that ego. I didn't really have that strong why. And I think these guys who got a very strong why, and say, why do I do this? Why do I push myself to this degree? I never really had that. And there could be an element of, a lot of these guys are from maybe tougher upbringings than certainly I was from. So is it that? Do you need a tough upbringing? I don't know. I think most fighters are from a tough upbringing, but not all fighters. Like, so it's very hard to put your finger on, to be honest.
And you say you never had your why, of course, when you're talking about coming to combat sports, but you clearly did in your business, because you have worked as hard as someone in combat sports has to make it in their field and your own.
Yeah, I think I had a why in terms of the business, absolutely. Just not a why in terms of why I'm competing. Why am I competing? I'm very middle class. Very middle class. So I didn't really have this why. I knew my mum and dad would be all right if I didn't make it as a UFC fighter. So yeah, I never heard that. I never had that. And it's funny because when I was younger, I was quite aggressive and I did used to get in fights and stuff, but I just never had that drive. And all these guys do. And I suppose they might all have different ones, but yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, good. I had another video of yours the other day where he talked about motivation versus discipline. If I'm getting the message of that right, you were saying that you can almost hack your way towards motivation, and by altering things like your environment. And again, you've used a good example of that, where you've realized that your environment, in terms of your scrolling and the social environment, or the social media environment you're going to put yourself in, might have been difficult when you were going through that breakup. So you've decided to hack that. You went and you changed it. So what could people do to sort of hack their environment to make sure the motivation stays as high as it possibly can?
So exactly like I talked about with that breakup situation, make sure you've got I've got a playlist. So make sure you've got a playlist of things that are going to motivate you, whether it be fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger training or things like that. Just make sure that's there. Or I even get motivated when I don't want to do work. I'll go and look up something. I'll go and look up something, whether it be a motivational business podcast. I'll listen to that. I'll maybe watch a YouTube or whatever it is on business, right? And that will get me kind of more motivated to go and do my fucking work. There's so many hacks you can do like that, and it's not going to work 100% of the time, right? It's not. But my point with that video was just about how they say, oh, you've got to rely on your discipline. But no one really talks about the motivational aspect of it, and no one really tells you how to get disciplined. So I just wanted to prove that there is a way to get that motivation. And yeah, it's a very quick fix, but if it makes you go to the gym that day, then it's going to work. It works. Now, again, your environment's so important. So if you're surrounded by it, if you're with someone who's super, super negative, you're going to be struggling. You're going to be struggling to get that motivation to do what you want to do, because that's maybe when you've got that business idea that you want to do and you put it to your partner, but they're super negative and they're like, that's not gonna fucking work. What do you know about strength and conditioning? You've never done strength and conditioning before. You work in a jail. What are you talking about? And if I had that kind of response, maybe it would have been like, you're fucking right. What a stupid idea that was. So there's things you can control in your environment, and I suppose you can't control who the person you're with, and it's super, super important. Super important. So those are my little hacks. Make sure you're with someone positive that's going to back you, and make sure that your social media is as positive as you can make it. Maybe make your a little positive playlist. Maybe on Spotify, I used to go out on walks and listen to positive affirmations or whatever it be. Make sure you've got that there, just in case you need to tap into it.
Again, I absolutely love that. And how much of your work do you think is about managing the mental side for your clients as well?
Oh, massive, right, massive. And they always say fighting is 80% mental, and it absolutely is. It absolutely is. You've got to put up a post today about peaking, and there's a phase in strength and conditioning called peaking or tapering. And what a lot of coaches don't understand is they just look at it from the physiological aspect of it. So how ready is that person's body to perform? But fight week and leading up to fight week, I'm exceptionally conscious of how I talk to that athlete and what I say to that athlete. So I won't say things like, fucking hell, you should watch his left hand. He knocks out everyone with that left hand. Be careful of that. Well, that's going to be a horrendous thing for my guy to hear a week before he steps into the ring with this person, right? So you need to be super, super positive. You need to use their language, which is important. I'm big on using the person's language. If I speak in scientific terms, they're going to be like, what the fuck's this guy talking about? Like, what are you going on about? They'll probably think like I'm trying to be smarter than him and things like that. That won't go over well. But yeah, the psychological factors are massive in combat sports. So you need to be very cognizant of that and speak to them in a way that they understand, but in a positive manner, especially in those kind of 2 weeks up leading to the fight. And some fighters are more kind of maybe affected by that than others. I had fighters that are super, super nervous for going to the fight. And then I was super careful about what I said, because if I said anything, they could be thinking on that all day, all week, and that's really not what you want. But yeah, that's a massive, massive component to coaching. It's huge. You know yourself, you need to learn how to speak to people. It's the same in the jail, it's the same in any walk of life.
I love that. The bit you talk about where you have to use the positive language and you maybe don't mention this guy's got a crazy left hook. It's amazing for fight week, but it's also amazing in general day-to-day life, because again, it's got like the example you used previously, where if at the wrong time someone says to you, that's actually a shit idea to go in the S&C, how different would your life be, man?
Yeah, massively different. And yeah, it's the exact same idea. You're absolutely right. And I think it is important as in life as in anything else. If I was maybe thinking about that guy's left hook, or if I was maybe thinking about, I don't have a degree in strength and conditioning, they're both massive negative things that I could concentrate on. But if I can maybe think about, I need to be cognizant of that as well, though. I think that's important. Like, you don't focus on having a hellish left hook, and you don't focus on not having a strength and conditioning degree, but you're aware of it. So you can then maybe stay away from that left hook. You can maybe then go and learn and get those qualifications that you need. You need to be aware of it, but it's about communicating it in the right manner and at the right time and using the right terminology and the right language.
Agreed, man. Agreed. It's similar to when you're talking about if Paul takes a loss and you're avoiding certain parts of the news, or you're not saying that you're avoiding the fact that Paul took a loss or pretending he won, or you're just choosing how much of that you're going to let be a negative in your life, or how you're going to let someone portray that to you while you form your own opinion of it. Now, I love that. So I used to something else. Sorry, you talk about a lot is recovery. And you've just spoke about some people will push themselves to the absolute limits. Or coaches will push them to the limits. And I used to think, watching people like Kieran and Paul, who've both been on the podcast, that they genuinely don't have a day off, and I used to think it was fucking nuts. But now I kind of get to a stage where if I'm planning my week so I see a rest day, I genuinely fucking dread it. Why do you think people that are ambitious tend to be so good at pushing it but terrible at recovering?
Because you think you're losing out and you think someone's gaining an edge on you. I think that's what it is. And you think that you're a bit of a waste of space. I'm like, if I'm not doing something either training or business related, I'm very, very bad at enjoying my time off. Really bad. I'll have to have it scheduled in, and I'll have to do something for me to earn it, for me to enjoy that time off, whatever it is. I'm quite bad at not being on my laptop. I think if you're not like that, you're probably not going to be successful in business. If you're not got that desire to push and to do more, and you're not going to be a successful athlete. Kieran Smith, Paul Craig, all super successful athletes. And I think if you don't have that, I've never had an athlete where I've had to push them, really. Not a successful athlete. I've had a few athletes where they've not really done what they're supposed to be doing, but they never got anywhere. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's just part of being a successful person is that want to push and not want to sit on your arse and do nothing.
Agreed. It's really interesting to see that intersection between, well, you saying that you've never had someone hugely successful that you've had to push to a massive degree. How do you think, you mentioned there about earning it, how do you think that everybody can get better at, or those that need it anyway, can get better at recovering and taking a day off and enjoying their time off?
So I think from an athlete's perspective, you've got to realise that recovering is one way you get better. You don't actually get stronger in the gym. You get stronger out with the gym when you've slept and when you've recovered. So you need to be disciplined. A lot of athletes are brilliant at being disciplined when it comes to training, but not that it's discipline. It's just a different type of discipline when it comes to resting. Resting takes discipline, but it's just not looked upon it like that when it is discipline, because it's massively, massively important. Then what I'll do for some of my athletes is I'll make sure that they're doing maybe active recovery, we call it. And it's maybe a zone 2 run. I'm sure you've done many a zone 2. So a zone 2 run, or maybe it's just a little bit of yoga, or maybe it's they go and swim, or whatever it is, but it's something not taxing at all, but it's something that keeps their mind active and it makes them think that they're doing something that is going to benefit their career. Even though recovery would absolutely benefit their career, it takes that kind of guilt away from them because they're doing something.
Like that. What lessons from elite sport can people apply directly into their day-to-day life?
Work ethic. The work ethic of an elite sportsman is probably second to none. I think you see that a lot when a lot of athletes retire and maybe go into business. They'll work exceptionally, exceptionally hard, probably very, very hard, and they'll be very, very successful in what they do. And there's a lot of successful ex-sportsmen out there in business. So I think that's a massive, massive thing that people can learn from. It's just the work ethic aspect of it. And again, it's about getting that balance, like I always talk about, making sure you're recovering, making sure you're listening to your body, and yeah, there's a point where you're probably going to push too hard. But and that's why I know we talked about briefly about not kind of tracking your sleep, or like you don't like to do it all the time. And I don't like to do it for my athletes all the time either. But if you've got an objective marker there that can tell you when to recover, listening to that gives you kind of justification for recovering. So for taking that day off, like, oh, my HRV is exceptionally low, I'm going to take a day off and it's okay because my HRV says so. But when you're relying on your voice in your head, that voice is going to be like, oh, you're a fucking pussy if you take this day off. I know I'm getting sidetracked, but that's massive for, I think, athletes too, for recovery. But yeah, work ethic is the main, is the answer to your question.
Amazing. So someone listening feels physically, mentally, emotionally stuck. Maybe it's something big, maybe it's something small, maybe they're just a bit fed up. What advice would you give to them right now?
I think you need to sit down and take a wee itinerary of your life and think and kind of write down obviously what is going wrong, but you really need to get doing exercise in some way, shape, or form. I don't believe in the whole I don't exercise or I'm not an athletic person. It's not about that. It's about moving. We all know movement releases endorphins. Running, I hate fucking running, but it releases endorphins and all this kind of stuff, right? So movement is medicine is an absolutely true statement. Do the stuff where you're kind of curating your environment and making that environment as positive as possible. Dump the girlfriend who's been an absolute moany bitch all the time and cause you an absolute nightmare. Quit the job, work for yourself, and yeah, it will change your life.
Good man. I love that. You said you hated running there, but last I spoke to you, you'd bought a pair of running trainers. Have you fell off?
No. I've you know what's funny about running? I have a love-hate relationship with running. When I start doing it and getting like a wee bit into the swing of it, I actually do start enjoying it. And this is why I still program it in for my athletes, because I know how many people love it. Can you imagine if you told Kieran Smith not to run? Oh my God, he'd be miserable. He'd be more miserable and more rude than he usually is, right? But I just didn't personally enjoy it, but I do get into the kind of rhythm of it, and I'm like, okay, I can see the benefits of it. I just find it hard to get into the rhythm of it. But I've went on a few runs. I went on a run when I was way down in Bournemouth with Sam. So I'm going to stick at it, and you're obviously my inspiration for that, Wardy. So thank you very much.
Ah, well, thank you, mate. Thank you. And so, finishing up, what does a good life look like to you today, Adam?
Now it's interesting that because a good life today, or what would be like a good life become the end of it, or like a day to day, or like, are you mean like the end of my life? What do I think would be a good life?
So, what does a good life look to you? So, taking everything that you've learned up to date and then taking what your goals are for the future, what would a good life look like to you?
Hmm. So because I've not made the kind of money I want to make, this is kind of not really what my dad would probably say, right? But I do want to make a fair bit of dough. I do want that. And I know like once you get that dough, you might be like, oh, it doesn't actually mean anything and it's not really going to make me happy. But for me, that is one of my goals. It is. And I think people are very, very negative about money sometimes. But that is a goal of mine, to be successful in business. We'll put it that way. Be successful in business, open up a few different gyms. So I've already got one at the minute, maybe open up another two. I would be quite happy with that. Obviously, I have a wife and kids. That's be a good one. I think that's pretty much up there with everybody's kind of goals in life, to be honest. And to be still working for myself. I think that's probably the best thing I ever did in my life was, well, it is the best thing I ever did was make that jump. So if I could stay self-employed with a few businesses on the go, I'd be pretty happy.
Brilliant. Now, this is a hard one to finish up on, but we'll finish up on this with most guests now. I think it's going to be a particularly good question to ask you, who's in an incredibly masculine environment, as a lot of our previous guests have been as well. Masculinity is in a strange place at the moment. You've got a lot of people on one side who are scared to exist in one way. You know, they've lost their voices, for want of a better phrase. People on the other side who probably quite negative. They're getting really bad press. They've got some good messages, but they're very aggressive in their messaging, and a lot of it has to come at the cost of other people. What does being a good man mean to you?
It's a very good question. I think for me, I'm maybe a wee bit old school on it. I think it would be being a good provider, being a good protector for my family. That's something that I'm quite big on. And I think if you're a man and you're doing that and you're caring for your family, I think you're doing pretty well.
Good, good. I love it, man. If people want to work with you, or they want to, well, first of all, let's start there. If people want to work with you, what are their options?
They can hit me up on adamlusbycoaching.co.uk, or they can follow me on Adam Lusby Coaching Instagram, Enhanced Sports Performance over on TikTok. And they can hit me up on there if you want coaching, one-to-one training, personalized programs. I've got you covered.
Yes, mate. What does the next few months look like for you?
So I don't think I've got too much coming up. I think we're obviously going to have Sean Weir out the end of this year. We're going to have Sean Clancy out the end of the year. Sam Hickey is going to be out probably in Dublin in August, which will be a really good one on another Zuffa show. So we'll just be kind of preparing for that. Sam hasn't got too much time off, maybe 9 weeks, so he'll be back in camp fairly soon. So it's just prepping my guys for that. Got a few things going on with the business at the minute. So we're just full steam ahead, my man. You know how it is.
Excellent, mate. I love it. Well, Adam, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you.
No bother, man. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
The Gentrified Stoic Podcast.